Hello, I'm Jay, owner of Volunteer Audio in Oliver Springs, Tennessee. You and so many others give us a call every day asking about audio on your Harley. And the number one request we get is people want more bass. You've already got the factory system or you've upgraded the system, and as you drive down the road, you always outrun your bass and it's not quite what you want. So watch this video as I go over some tips, some tricks, and some ways to get more bass out of your audio system on your Harley Davidson. This video is brought to you by VolunteerAudio.com, your #1 source for all things Harley-Davidson audio. From individual radios, speakers, and amps to complete plug-and-play amp and speaker systems, we've got you covered. And once you've ordered your package from Volunteer Audio, it includes lifetime tech support. And we have the very best step-by-step installation video so you can install it yourself and save money. All right, so let me share you a secret about Harley. The only thing consistent about our audio on Harley is the inconsistency at Harley in their wiring. So over and over and over, we have people that call us. Maybe you have a system from one of umpteen different brands that wasn't even bought from Volunteer Audio. We get a lot of calls about the Rockford systems where people tell us, my system, it just isn't loud enough, it doesn't have good bass. And I'm always like, okay, I understand the not being loud enough because a lot of systems aren't loud enough. But the Rockford speakers always tend to have decent bass. So when they tell me it's all treble, I know there's something wrong. And quite often what we find is, no matter what brand it is, including if you buy it from Volunteer Audio, once your install is complete, you could have speakers out of phase. Now that term just means that these two wires that hook up to your speaker could be in the wrong position. Now, even if you follow those diagrams perfectly and you put the positive wire on the positive terminal of the speaker, Harley-Davidson is stupid inconsistent in their wiring. For instance, this week I've worked on two 23 model bikes. This one's a 22. Both of those 23s, the front speaker pods, were wired backwards from the factory. If we back up a couple years, get into the 19, 20, 21 tour packs, almost every one of those I test, the factory speakers are wired backwards from the front speakers. Now, anytime we have two speakers wired backwards, we've got this one playing out on a bass note, this one's pulling in at the same time, and they do what we call cancellation. And that cancellation is most likely heard in the mid-bass range, 120 hertz, 200 hertz, right where the fullness of most music comes from. So when somebody calls me and they say, my system is loud, but it's not full, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to recommend getting a polarity or phase checker. This is a very, very cheap tool. We have these available at volunteeraudio.com. They're about $16.99 shipped to you. So very, very inexpensive tool. And if you go to Volunteer Audio's YouTube channel, the same channel you're watching, we have a polarity test track that you can easily bring up on your phone, and through Bluetooth, you can send that YouTube track to this radio because we know you don't have a CD. Most of these tools come with a CD. While that track is playing, you're just going to hear some little clicks and pops. Just pop, 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 pop. But they're actually sending a speaker one way and then the other. So this tool is going to either give you 3 red lights and a green light, or 3 green lights and a red light. What we want to make sure is that every speaker on the bike, from our upper fairing to our lower fairing to our 6x9s to our lids, even to a subwoofer if you've added it, that all of them are going the same direction. So we don't care if it's 3 greens and a red or 3 reds and a green, they just all have to match. If even one is out, your sound's going to sound not full. Speaker's going to sound very high-pitched and tinny, and you're going to complain that all I hear is treble. So the first step, anytime when somebody tells me they don't have enough bass and they've already upgraded their system, we have them check this. And I'm going to tell you, 9 out of 10 times, probably a lot higher percentage than even that, we find out they have 1, if not 2 speakers out of phase. And it's not their fault. It's not that they're a poor installer. Believe me, I touch about 10 bikes a week that I personally install, 200 to 300 bikes a year. Every year I'm doing audio systems in. And I still, every single system, before we listen to music on it, I'm going to take a polarity tester and I'm going to test every one of these speakers and make sure they're in phase so we get the best end result. You spent a lot of money on a good amp. You bought great speakers. We want to make sure it's all working together. So even if you've already bought from Volunteer Audio in the past, Maybe you've bought from another company. Maybe it's Rockford or Sinister or Sounds, or so many different systems could be bought. You need to get a polarity checker, and you need to check your system if you don't think you have enough bass. All right, so let me talk about what we should expect in bass, because I don't want you to have false hopes or too high of expectations. When you're playing a 6.5-inch speaker in the fairing and you only have 2 speakers, you should really expect for it to be loud, clear, great vocal range, and you can hear some of the bass guitar and the drums, but you're never going to play low notes like a subwoofer out of a pair of 6.5s. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to sound as full and as big as if you had a subwoofer. But we're talking about a system that's tremendously better than the stock system at that point, because you're hearing it over the wind, over the engine, and it's clear and you can make out the words, and a good 2-speaker system should meet all of those things. It should be loud enough that you can hear it at any speed. You should be able to hear it with a full face helmet on, and you should be able to make out all the musical instruments and hear the song and all the words clearly. Now you want more bass than what a 6.5 will do, because most 6.5s are going to play maybe 85 hertz and up. The next step would be a set of 6x9s. 6x9s in your lids will play lower, most of the time 60, 65 hertz and up, which gets us right on the edge of the sub-bass range. It's going to give us more mid-bass. It's going to give us more of a surround sound, a club sound, more fullness in our music by adding our 6x9s. But again, only if these are in phase with the front speakers. They've got to work together. Now, so many people tell me, I thought I was going to get more bass and I bought lowers to do so. I want to tell you, get that idea out of your head. We never gain bass by adding lower speakers. Lower speakers, in my opinion, look good. They add more volume, but they never, ever, ever add bass. We either have too small of a sealed enclosure, or we have a vented enclosure that is also so small it doesn't produce bass, or it's ported out the bottom, or we have liquid-cooled lowers with radiators. We're basically free airing that speaker. We just will never get good bass from a lower. Now understand how this works. If you add a speaker to your system that doesn't have as much bass as the other two, your total system sound is going to have less bass. Because the more treble we hear, the less bass we're going to pick up in here. So we want to match the right speakers together and the right locations together. A tour pack with 6.5s sounds great. It's probably one of my favorite locations past the 6x9, is because most 6.5-inch tour pack locations, especially 14 and up, they're ported into the tour pack. That tour pack is a big enclosure, giving us good mid-bass, more of that surround sound, more rear fill, because we always need a little more in the back. Still yet, none of this is going to give you that deep, low sub-bass that a subwoofer would do. So, 2 speakers, 4 speakers, 6 or 8, I don't care how many you have, you need them all working together. You need a polarity tester. Here's a more expensive one. This one's about $50. But this tool right here will definitely do everything you need to check all those speakers and get them in phase. Again, we don't care which way they're firing as long as they're all firing the same. So if you check your tour pack and you check your fairing, and your fairing speakers are backwards, and let's say you've got a street glide like this one, it is a pain to pull these speakers and change those wires. Change the tour pack speakers to match the front. That way, just go with the easiest speaker to get the best end result. All right, so with all that being said, we know you want bass, and we know you don't want to lose space. So the other option would be to put in a drop-in subwoofer. Not permanently installed. It does take up a lot of bag space. Here's an example of one in this bike we're working on right now. So this is the Precision Power drop-in sub. We have 2 versions of this. We have one that's modified with a recess here for deep 6x9s, or in the case of this bike, if you're using the Precision Power 6x9s, it's going to clear. But this is not a permanently installed enclosure. It is really something that once wired in is dropped into the bag. It gives us really good low bass that we can never get from a 6.5, a 6x9, a lower, a tour pack, or any of these locations. It's going to add something you're missing. It's going to make it more full. It's going to make it bigger. But when you've got that long trip and you need that space, you can unplug this sub. There's some quick disconnect harnesses on the side. You can pull the little latches that normally would hold the lid when you shut it, and you can take this out. Your bag is back usable. You have all of that space, but believe me, once you put a sub in your bike and you listen to it, you're going to smile ear to ear, and that smile's not going to leave while you're riding, and you're not going to want to take that sub out. So probably invest in a tour pack to put some belongings in, because once the sub's in, you're not going to want to remove it, even if it is easy. Number one thing that we see over and over and over is polarity issues. And it's not, like I said earlier, it's not your fault. It's not that you did a bad install. It's not your installer's fault. It is your installer's fault if at the end they didn't take and test it with a Polarity Test tool. We were recently at a rally and I had a guy ride up on a tri-glide, and he had had a system put in by Rockford Fosgate. They're at most all the rallies. He'd had it put in, and he come up complaining about his system. He said it's loud, it's very high pitched, and I have no bass. And so we started talking about the components. And I mean, this guy told me what he listened to. We went through it, and I could have easily sold him a system. But I thought, you know, first let's check the polarity of what you have, and let's see if we can make it better. We checked the front speakers, we checked the back speakers, and as I somewhat assumed from what he said, the rear speakers were completely out of phase. Pulled the speakers out, swapped the wires, and I think we got a new friend for life because his system all of a sudden sounded much, much better. Now, we don't sell Rockford here. We sell Hertz and Precision Power, Infinity, and I think we have great systems, and I think we have better systems at the same price point. But I'm telling you, you don't always have to switch your components up. If they're improperly installed, a lot of times we can simply fix that improper installation and we can get a much better end result. Let me show you real quick on this bike. I'm gonna get it fired up. We've got our YouTube track playing, and I'm gonna show you how to use this tool so that you know how to do that polarity test. All right, so I've got this bike fired up. I'm currently running the Volunteer Audio speaker polarity test track off of YouTube on our radio. I'm going to unpause it, I'm going to turn it up. You're going to hear some little pops, and I want to show you just how this tool works. Now, it's going to be important that you get your volume at the right level. If it's too loud or too low, you're going to get the same flash over and over. You want to see a consistent flash of 3 colors, 3 green or 3 red, followed by the opposite color. So let's start up here at our upper fairing speaker. So as you see, we're getting 3 red flashes and a green one. Now it'll pick up ambient noise like me talking, it'll throw it off. So you want a quiet room when you do this. Let's move to our lower and see if it matches. Okay, so we've got a match, 3 greens, or 3 reds and a green. Let's do our other front speaker. So I've already took one of these and I've swapped it because I want to show you what it's like when it's wrong. Let's go to our 6x9. Make sure you're not picking up the tweeter, it'll throw you off. So as you see, I've got 3 greens and a red. And if I want to fix that to match my other ones that were 3 red and a green, I'm simply going to disconnect my positive and negative terminals on my speaker. I'm going to change where they're plugged in at. In this case, I'm going to tighten up my positive terminal so it doesn't want to fall off. So now let's retest it. All right, so we're going to continue that on all of our speakers, all 6 of them. Now in this bike, as you just saw, we have a drop-in sub in here. So with the subwoofer turned on, we're not going to actually go to the top of the sub. We're going to go to the bottom of our bag because our drop-in sub actually has ports along the bottom that let the sound out. So the bass can come out, the sound can come out, but they're a hydrophobic port with a special cloth that won't let water get in. So in that case, we'd come down here. And we'd want to get 3 reds and a green. Now you're going to adjust volume till you consistently get the right. If you see 4 reds or 3 reds, 3 greens, and so on, it's not consistent, get your volume up or down to where you get a proper reading. All right, so these were just some tips, some tricks that we've got, whether it be system design and proper placement of speakers, the proper wiring of it, or even the addition of a sub. We want to make sure that you know what it takes to be getting exactly what you were expecting out of your system. Sometimes it's not about how much money you spend, but where you spend your money that gets you the best end result. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the little button for subscribe at Volunteer Audio, and we'll keep you up to date with all the latest products. We'll let you know what it is that you need to buy that's quality, as well as how to install it, and then how to use it once you've got it installed to make sure that you end up with the best results. Like this video, so many people need to know about Polarity, about speakers, how they work, how they have to work together to give us good sound. So definitely like the video. It's going to move it up in search results. More people are going to see it, and more people are going to have better sounding audio systems. Definitely continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube as we keep you up to date with all the latest news in the audio world from Harley-Davidson. And go to volunteeraudio.com to pick up this tool. Now, we're going to have links throughout the video at the top. It's also going to be down in the description. Click those. We've got them in stock, ready to ship out. And we've got the video, the Polarity Test video you need on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for watching. Call us at 1-844-30-AUDIO if you got questions, maybe about system design. We have the very best plug-and-play full systems available for your Harley, following it up with the best step-by-step install video so you can install it right. And at the very end, don't forget to Polarity check your system so the end result sounds the absolute best. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, God bless.